After being bitten by a venomous spider, Peter Parker transforms into a unique sort of superhero. Our hero Peter Parker tells us that his story started because of a girl. Peter had a lot of problems like being bullied, lacking self-confidence, and loves a girl and can't feel her. We see Peter tries to catch a school bus and the driver as usual bothers him and he doesn't want to stop until the beautiful Jan shouts for the driver to stop, and the driver stopped when she threatened him that she would inform the administration about what he was doing. Then Peter enters and regrets that he was late and no one wants to let him sit next to him. But Peter's whole focus was with Jane. Yes, she is the girl he loves, but she's Flash's girlfriend, and Peter loves her since he was 6 years old because they are neighbors from a long time ago. Later, the students arrive at Azkaban Company because they have a field visit there, and from here everything starts to change. The teacher warns the students so that no one gets lost of him as they did last month. Later, all the students enter and Harry, Peter's only friend, arrives. He arrives with his father Norman, one of the founders of Azkaban Company, and he is a scientist and a great inventor, and he wishes Harry to be like him and always compare between him and his colleagues like Peter, who was the first time to be got to know him today. And Harry said a lot about him and told him that he is an ambitious and successful young man, especially in science, and that's what Norman likes. And he wanted to meet Peter's family, but he told that to live with his uncle Ben and his wife May. Then Harry and Peter joined the rest of the students, and they were Azkaban employees explaining to them about spiders and the great ability they have, and after their experience on them. Then Peter is self-focused with Jane and Flash, who tries to get close to her, but she upset with him. Then they stand in front of one of the box spiders, and when Peter tries to take a picture, Flash hits him, so they transfer to another one, and Flash makes the same do. So Harry gets annoyed and warns Flash not to be bother his friend, but they make fun of Harry and ask him if they don't stop doing that, will he ask his father to kick them out. But Harry doesn't want his father to get into these problems because the students bully him because of him, and they think he depends on his father, but he isn't. When the supervisor finds them fighting, he warns them that the one who will fall in his subject will fall the whole year. Then Peter and Harry go at another spider, and Harry tells that he's disgusting and not interested in these animals. But Peter explains more about spiders and tells him that they adapt according to the environment they are in. But Harry said he doesn't care about all this. Later, the students go to a new type of spider, and Harry asks Peter if he intends to talk to Jane, but he says no talk to her. So Harry goes to talk to her and uses the information Peter told him to get closer to her, so Peter got upset. Then Jane listens to the employees and tells her that we are missing a spider, so she tells her that sure, it isn't in the lab to do experiments on it, but the truth is that the spider runs away and weaves its strings on them. Later, Peter asks Jane for a picture for the school magazine, and he takes pictures, but he doesn't notice that the escaped spider that came down on his hand. Then Jane leaves and the spider beat Peter, but he doesn't care. But this spider is hybrid, and it's from different genus of venomous spider. Then we find the Azkaban scientists who have developed a new weapon for the army, but it's still not complete, and Dr. Normal arrives to attend the sled test and the suit, and asks the army commander about the latest test report. So Dr. Storm tells that the experiments on mice aren't good, so they have to repeat the experiments again. So Norman gets angry and says they are gonna to start human experiments. But Storm refuses and tells him that this is dangerous and they need only 1 week to correct these mistakes. But the leader isn't patient because Quest is offering him a new weapon and he can cancel the funding of Azkaban anytime. So Norman is annoyed and worried about his company. At Peter's house, we find Uncle Ben is upset and complains to May that he is discharged from his work and looks for a job, but his age isn't qualified to find a good job, especially that is still all about technology right now. Later, Harry gets home and he isn't normal and runs to his room directly, and he tells them that he's tired. Later, Peter's temperature is very high and he looks gravely ill, and we discovered that the spiders is genetically modified to be used in human experiments and give humans the power of spiders. But when Peter was bitten by the spider, it changed his genes. At Oscorp, Normal designs to try the new product on himself because he's worried about his company. So Storm helps him to transfer, but his heart stops. So Storm enters him while he's shocked. But Norman wakes up suddenly and grabs Storm and says that he looks abnormal and has a strange power, and he throws Storm away, and because of him he dies. Next day, Harry is normal and is surprised that he sees without glasses, and also he gets muscles. Then May calls him because he will be late for school, so he wears and runs, but he does unusually active, and all are surprised of the vitality and activity that Peter is in. Then he goes out and finds Jane going out, and hears her father shouting for her, and he walks quickly to talk to her, but he can't catch her, and he wishes to tell her that he loves her from a long time, but her friends arrives and take her with them in the car. And as usual, Peter ran to catch the bus, and he is surprised that he fast and takes the bus poster in his hand. Later, Harry enters to Norman and finds him sleeping on the floor and tired, so he wakes him up and asks him if he is God and tells that there are people from the company outside and they want him. And Norman tries to remember what happened, and he doesn't remember anything. And his colleagues enter and tell that Storm was killed and the Sly and the suit were stolen. But Norman doesn't know what happened. At school, Peter has lunch and he finds Jane falls, but he catches up with her before she falls quickly and collects the food in the way that he himself is surprised at. And Jane thanks him and tells him that he is very fast. And he is happy because he finally talked to her, but his hand gets strings out of it and sticks to another tray. Peter is shocked and trying to hide what happened, but the tray hits the Flash, so he wants to fight Peter, so Peter leaves the place, but insists that he fights with him, so Jane tries to stop him, but Flash beats him, and Peter avoids his hits in a strange and fast way. And Jane said to Harry to help him, but Harry tells her that Flash who needs help. Then Peter hits Flash quickly, and all the students are afraid of him, so he gets annoyed and gets out of the school, but he remembers the bit and that it might have transformed him, and he looks at his hand and finds teeth like the teeth on the hand of the spider, and tries to climb the wall and really succeeds. Then he tries to make a net and keeps jumping from one building to another while he's happy. Later he comes home late and finds Ben and May finished painting, so he takes out the trash. So he meets Jane outside, and she was out after she fought with his father. Then they talk and she asks him what does she intend after graduation. So he says she will move to another city and work as a photographer. She also intends to do the same thing and move to the city and work in acting. So Peter encourages her, and she's happy because of his encourage. Then Flash delivers with his new car and takes her with him. So Peter thinks of buying a car to attract Jane, and he looks for a job and finds an advertisement for 3-minute wrestling competition for $3,000. So he makes to himself suit like a spider shape that is inspired by the colors of the clothes and hair of Jane. Later, he keeps training all the time and humiliating the room with strings. And when he leaves, his uncle insists to give him a ride, and on the way he tells him that the fights aren't good, and he knows what happened and advises him if he feels that he wants to talk, he is here. So Peter gets annoyed and says that don't act like a father. So Ben gets sad, but he says an important sentence that the extra power is accompanied by increased responsibility. Later Peter goes to register in the contest, and everyone is making fun of him because he is weak, but he can beat his huge wrestler. And when he got the money, the owner of the ring doesn't give him all the money because he got rid of the wrestler before the specified time. So Peter gets annoyed and gets out. Then a thief enters on him and robs that place, but Peter doesn't accept helping the owner, and he is happy because he was robbed. And he comes out and he waits for Ben, but suddenly Ben was shot by a thief, and the police report that they chase the criminal, and Peter goes after them, and he can surround him in a deserted place, and he is shocked that the thief who let him run away. So Peter fights with him, and feeling guilty that his uncle's death was because of him, and he kills the thief by mistake, but Peter felt relieved. Then he runs away from the police before they arrest him, and he goes to May and tells what happened. Later, the leader goes to Quest Company, but the sled appears and a person rides it and kills all, even the leader and the owner of the experience. After a while, Peter and Harry and Jane graduate, and Norman congratulates Harry and tells him he's happy because he was wrong, and he graduates successfully from the school, and he consults Peter and tells him that they become one family, and Jay separates from Flash, and so Harry becomes happy. Later, Peter comes back home and thinks about Ben and cries, and May tells him that she misses him too, and he says that the reason of his sad is that the last day they fought together, but she tells him she was like his father, and he understands what he's going through. Later, Peter decides to develop his suit. Then he saves the people and gives the thieves to the police, but they think that they should arrest him. But there's a group that liked him. At newspaper, James wants to publish the news of Spider-Man because readers ask for the news about him, and tells them if anyone took pictures of Spider-Man, he has a reward. Later, Peter is at town after Norman gives him and Harry an apartment, and he meets Jane by coincidence and knows that she works in a restaurant, and the dream of acting hasn't come true, and asks him not to tell Harry. So he is shocked because they are dating and Harry didn't tell him, so he says goodbye to her while he's upset because his friend loves her. Then Peter comes home and he finds Norman there, but Harry is annoyed and tells Peter that he comes to check on them, and Harry says he wants him to choose the project with him, but he noted that Peter is upset, so he asks him what happened. So he tells that he fired from his job because he's very late. Harry is surprised and he suggests that he work with his father in the company, but Peter refuses. Then Norman asks Peter if he knows a girl that Harry loves, but Peter says he doesn't know anything about her because Harry didn't talk about her. So Harry tries to change their talk and tells his father that Peter needs a job, and he hopes if he takes the company because he loves science. So Norman agrees, but Peter refuses and tells that he prefers to depend on himself. So Norman likes him more, and jealousy shows on Harry's face. And Norman asks him if he has other skills, so he says he loves photography. Then Peter finds an advertisement for James' newspaper asking for pictures of Spider-Man for a good amount of money, and he thinks that he will apply in it. At night, Peter finds a robbery of one of the cars that transfer money to the bank, and the thieves beat the guard. But before they steal the car, Peter appears in his suit and beats them and takes a picture of himself with the camera that he fixed in the tree. Next day, he goes to newspaper, but he tells him that the pictures aren't nice and he will buy them for a small price, but Peter refused. So James says to him, go to another newspaper. So Peter leaves, but James tells him he will buy it for $300 after he knows that his newspaper increased its sales after the news of Spider-Man appeared in it, and let Peter's pictures appear on the front page. And Peter agrees with the newspaper. He comes back with new pictures of Spider-Man. At Normal Company, he meets the company board to discuss their new project, but he is surprised that they ask him to resign from the presidency of the company because it loses and they will sell it for Quest Company, which despite the explosion, it's able to stand on again. And Normal tells them that he's one of the company's makers and it's impossible for them to walk without him, but they force him to resign, and the sale for Quest Company will be at annual celebration tomorrow. So Normal agrees, but his looks aren't reassuring at all. Later, Harry and Jane attend the annual celebration of the company because Harry wants to introduce his father to Jane, but she is annoyed cried because Harry asked her why she didn't wear the black dress, because his father cares about the appearance very much, but she tells that if he likes her, she will like his father, and she doesn't have to change herself. And Peter also be there filming the event, and he as usual focus with Jane. Later Harry knows that his father isn't coming to the party from the new manager. Then Peter feels that there is something strange. They are surprised by someone who flies on a skateboard, and they call him the Green Ghost. Then the ghost throws a bomb at the building, so demolish part of the building, and Jane hangs on to it, but Harry fainted. Then the ghost throws bomb at the heads of the company and transformed them to skeletons. Because of what he did, the building was going to fall on the people, so Peter becomes Spider-Man and saves the people and tries to hit the ghost, but he is stronger than him and hit him below him away, and he shoots him while trying to save Jane until he can't get out with the board. He rides and the ghost escapes before they discover him because it drives energy from the board. Then Peter saved Jane at the last minute and took her away until they arrived to the garden, and she asks him, "Who are you?" And he told her she knows him well, but she doesn't understand, but she falls in love with him. Then Harry checks on Jane at home, and she tells about Spider-Man who saved her and how wonderful he was, and Harry is jealous because he couldn't save her. Then Peter checks on her and tells Harry that she is fine, but she looks confused, and he asks him if he knows anything about what happened, but Peter doesn't know what he is and tells him that someone should face him. And Harry asks him if he is sad because his relation with Jane, but he didn't try to talk to her once, that's why he engaged to her. But Peter said that he doesn't like her and lies. In Norman's house, he hears strange sounds of laughter, so he's shocked and keeps looking around until he looks in the mirror, and he talks to himself madly as if someone else is talking. Then he knows that the Green Ghost is Normal, but Normal denies what he says and doesn't believe that he killed these people, but the voice reminds him of the day of the experiment when the doctor do it on him. At the time, he is the one who killed his colleagues and turned into the Green Ghost, and he said that they must kill Spider-Man or unite with them because he's the only one capable of facing him and destroying his dreams, and if he did that, he will return to his company again, but he must know who is Spider-Man. Later, Peter delivers the pictures to James, but he gets annoyed when James says false news about Spider-Man to get much money. Then he attacks him and asks him about the photographer who brings him to the pictures of Spider-Man because he wants to get him, but James denies that he knows him and that the pictures come to him by email. Then Peter changes his clothes quickly and goes to Norman, but Norman dragged and took him to the roof of the building. Later, Peter wakes up and asks where is he, and Norman tells that he is with him, and he comes to offer him work together, and if they unite, they will control the city. But Peter refuses to share these crimes with him because he doesn't want to be like him, and he is supposed to be a hero, not a criminal. But Norman tells him he will meet him again, then he will know his response, and he leaves and he doesn't take off the mask or know who is. Then he meets Jane and says he is accidentally passing by here and invites her for dinner, but she tells him she's going to have dinner with Harry, but she wants him to join them, but he refuses and she is still out of a performance experience, and she is upset because she didn't accept and leaves him to catch Harry. But Peter discovers that there is two suspects goes after her, but before they hurt her, Peter saves her, and then she asks to talk to him and asks him if he walked behind her to save her. He told her it was a coincidence, and this is the same sentence as Peter. She asked him to know who he is, but he refuses. Next day, there is a fire in a big building, and there is a baby inside that no one can save until Peter Spider-Man arrives and enters to save the child, and the mother thanks him, but the policeman wants to arrest him, but they hear a child voice calling for the help, and the policeman tells Peter to save her, and he goes. Then Peter calls for the child and sees someone wrapping himself in the blanket, but he isn't surprised that she isn't a child and that he is a Norman, and he makes a girl voice. Norman tells he is naive and he is the reason of fire to meet him, and he asks him if he accepts his offer, but Peter refuses. And Norman hides bombs, and when he hears Peter refused, he throws bombs at him, but Peter can avoid them. Then he throws knives, and he can also escape from them, but one of them injures his arm, and both hits each other, but the building explodes. So the ghost withdraws before he dies and promises him that he will come back to him again, and he must accept his offer or kill him. Later, Norman going to Harry's house to attend for the feast, and Jane is there, and Harry wants to introduce his father to her. Then Norman delivers, and when he sees Jane, he asks who she is. So Harry tells him that Jane is his lover, and they ask about Peter, and May tells them that he hasn't arrived yet, but they hear a knock on the top. So they get surprised that he is above, and they go up, but they don't find anyone. And Peter hangs from the ceiling, but a drop of blood falls from him on the ground, and Norman finds it. But when he looks at the ceiling, he doesn't find anyone, so he knows that Spider-Man was here, and he starts to doubt Peter. Then Peter arrives from the out, and while they eat May notice that Peter's hand bleeds, and Norman sees the wand in his hand, so he asks him about it, but he lies. But Norman knows the shape of the wand of his weapon, and suddenly he leaves them. But Harry tells him to wait, and he is upset because he wants to meet Jane. Then they are outside the apartment, but their voice is high, and he tells him that Jane isn't of his level, and he wants a good girl, and he says bad words about her and leaves. When he enters, he asks them if someone heard anything, so Jane tells him they hear everything, and she is mad. But Harry says to her not to be insult his father because she isn't like him, and everyone fights, and dinner is ruined because of Peter, who still doesn't know that Norman is the ghost. Then the ghost and tells Norman he must kill Peter and must hurt the closest one to him. So he goes to May while she is preparing for sleep, and she is afraid of him, and she enters to the hospital. Then Peter arrives, and he finds her collapsed, and she says she saw his eye. Peter understands it's talking about ghost, and he knows that the ghost knew who he was, but he doesn't know who him. The next day, Jane arrives to check on her, and Peter asks her if she is still mad at Harry. She tells that she doesn't love him, and she loves Spider-Man. So he tells her he talked about you, and he knows that he is his photographer. So she is happy. Later, Harry arrives, and Jane pulls her hand from Peter's hand, and he leaves upset, and he tells his father about what happened. So Norman thinks to take revenge on Jane. Later, May wakes up and tells Peter to go back home, and tells him that she heard him when he was talking to Jane, and she knows that he loves her from the time she came to live next to them. So he asks her if his love for her is very clear like this. So she says of course, and everyone notices, but Peter is afraid and thinks the ghost knows him, so he might know Jane and might hurt her because of him. And this is what happened, because when he called her, Norman answered him with the ghost voice and tells if he wants to save her, he will meet him on the bridge. Then Jane finds herself on the bridge with no safety around her. At the same time, the cable car passes by the group of kids, and they see the ghost, and they are impressed until he destroys the wire carrying the car that the children were in. And when Peter arrives, the ghost holds Jane in one hand and the car in the other hand, and Peter given the voice between saving both and accepting his offer for choosing to save one of them and refuse the offer. But Peter refuses to join him, so he leaves the rope and Jane. So Peter gets down quickly to catch Jane, and then he holds the rope carrying the car, but the car is very heavy. Fortunately for him, there is a ship, and the workers tell him to bear a little until they are under the car and leave it. But Norman attacks him, and the car falls from him, but he catches it quickly. But people started throwing things at him and encourage Peter to save the kids. Then he can catch the car and get it down safely with them and saves Jane. And the ghost can reveal Peter's face, and he is close to killing him. But Peter gathered his strength and attacks him. him and able to expose his face and is surprised that he's Norman. So he keeps hitting him until Norman pretending that he doesn't know what is going on and that the ghost is the one who controlled him, and he begs him to help him so that the ghost doesn't control him again. But Norman is behind him, moving his sled to kill Peter, but Peter's sense of danger alerts him, and the sled kills Norman, who begs Peter before he dies that his son Harry doesn't know anything of what happened. Later Peter takes him home dead and without the ghost suit, and Harry sees him and asks Spider-Man, "What are you doing here?" But he's surprised that his father died, and he suspected that Spider-Man is the one who killed his father. And at his father's funeral, Peter condoles him, and Harry tells him that Spider-Man killed his father and he will take revenge on him one day. And Peter feels guilty and the maid secret that he's carrying, and he can't talk to anyone. Then he visits his uncle Ben's grave, and Jane goes to him, who confesses her love to him, and she says that she didn't see him, although he was the only person standing next to her and interested in her and believing in her talent for the sake of his friend who is alone, and promises her that he will stay with her for the rest of the life and support her as her brother. And Peter leaves her, and one sentence that he remembers from his uncle Ben: "The big power will have more responsibility." Until here, the first part of our movie today finished, and wait for the remaining parts of our Spider-Man series. You'll love action, suspense, and mystery. We have it. Also existed in the common many. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and that's okay. Bye bye. Our part ended with the death of Norman, Harry's father, who is the friend of Peter Spider-Man. When Harry saw Spider-Man back with his father, he thought he was the one who killed him and is more revenge. But Peter became depressed because he broke up with Jane, who finally loved him, but he preferred to leave her for his friend. And Jane became an actress finally, and her photos were everywhere, and Peter sees it every day and sad. Then he worked delivery and he is always late and tired, and he arrives late, and Aziz, owner of the shop, yells at him and tells him there is an order that must arrive within 8 minutes or he will lose its cost and the customer. And he gives the order to Peter, and he asks him if he can depend on him. So he said, "Give me the order, and in seconds I will be there." So he gives him it and warns him that this is his last chance. If he fails to deliver it at the time, he considers himself fired. Then Peter takes it and flies between cars, but people insult him and yell at him because he broke the signal. But the order must arrive on time. But Peter sees 2 kids hit by big truck. Fortunately, he wears his suit under the normal clothes. Then he saves the children quickly, and he returns to take the pizza and goes to the address of the order. But he arrives a couple of seconds late, and the girl says he's late, but he leaves the order and returns to the shop. And as he says one word, "You are fired." So he's trying to convince him to leave him, but he refuses, and his second time he is fired because James, the newspaper's owner, was firing him too because he doesn't bring photos of Spider-Man. And Peter tells him that Spider-Man refuses to imagine because he returns him out to be a criminal, but James says he wants it anyway. So Peter shows him a picture of him saving the children, but he says bad, and he gives it to Roy to print it on the front of page and tells him to write that Spider-Man is a danger that threatens the country to earn more money. Later Peter goes to university, but the teacher tells him that the lecture finished early. And this isn't the first time that he's late, and even the graduation project is still not finished. So Peter tells he's working on Dr. Otto's project, and the teacher tells that Otto is his friend and very smart. Then Peter comes home broke, but he gets surprised that Harry and Jane and May are there, and they make a birthday for him. But he doesn't remember it. Then he tells Jane that he read about her play and maybe tomorrow he will watch it. So she's happy, and Harry asks him about Spider-Man, which he calls the insect, and he wants to know who he is because Peter is only one he meets. But May says he must stay away from him because he is a troublemaker, and Harry tells that he took his father's place in his company. Also, he works with Otto on a project, and if he wants to get to know him, he can make him meet him if he knew who Spider-Man would say, so Peter doesn't reply to him, so Harry gets mad. Later, Peter sees a warrant to seize the house, then wakes May up, and she thinks him Ben. And he asks her about the loan and the house seizures. So she tells him that she will solve the problem, but she cries and remembers her husband who passed 2 years after his death and wishes if he was with her, he would help her. Peter feels guilty because he's the reason Ben died, but he can't tell her the truth. Later, he meets Jane outside the home, but she's mad at him because he rejected her, and she said that he became mysterious and he isn't Peter of past, and she tells she got engaged to a person and she likes him to make him jealous, but he doesn't. So he says he will get married. So he shocks, but he doesn't show it. And he asks her about her playtime and she says it's 8 o'clock and she wishes that he comes to watch her. Later, Peter returns to home, and the owner of the house stops him and tells him the rent, so Peter showed that he only has $20, but he takes it from him. In the morning, he takes his clothes and goes to the bathroom, but the owner precedes him and asks him about the rent again, so Peter closes the door. Then he prepares himself to go to Harry's company to meet Dr. Otto. When he arrives, he meets Otto and Harry tells him that he works on a big project, bigger than his father's dream. Then Otto tells Peter that his teacher told him about him and told him that he's smart but lazy, and tells him intelligence is a gift that needs you to improve it, and the most important thing that he must use it for the benefit of humanity. And Peter asks him about his project, so he shows it to him and tells him it will be an energy like no other. Then Otto introduces him to Rosie, his wife, and she is a scientist too, and tells Peter how they met before. Later, Otto explains the project to him, which will be the energy of the sun, and he wants to make a small sun, and he says to Peter that after the generation of this sun, he will use its energy to serve many things. But Peter warns him that there is a mistake in the calculation, but Otto says impossible. Later, Peter comes home and wears the suit under the normal suit and goes to Jane's show. At the time, everyone had arrived at the theater, but Peter is still on the way, and Jane is getting ready, and she's happy because Peter is coming, to the extent that her colleagues noted this on her. At the time, Peter buys followers for Jane, but the money wasn't much, so he takes a little. Later, there is a car that is going to hit him, but he saves himself and jumps quickly from the visa, but the car literally mines the visa, and they are a group of thieves run away from the police, but 2 of the kids see him and ask him how he did that. So he tells them he feeds well and eats a lot of vegetables. Then Peter uncovers his suit and helps the police and people and saves them before the car falls on them. And he catches the thieves and borrows the car from them to go to the theater with it. Then Jane looks for him in the middle of the crowd and she doesn't find him, so she's very upset. And Peter arrives, but the guard tells him to leave because no one enters after the door is closed. So Peter gets annoyed and tells him that Jane is the one who asked him to come, and if he doesn't enter, she will be mad. But the guard refuses, so Peter waits for her in front of the door, and he is upset. He finally sees her while she is going out. He's going to her, but he stops when he finds her friend with her, but she looks for him. But before he moves again, Jane's love arrives, so he leaves while he's angry and upset and wears the suit and keeps jump on houses while he's angry. But something strange happens to him. While he moves between houses, the threads get rid of him, and this is the first time it happens to him. So he tries again, but the threads don't come out. He decides to take the elevator to get down, and someone sees him and asks him where did he get the suit from. So he tells him he made it by himself, but it's a little tight, and he said that moving in it's very hard. Then Peter comes home and takes the broken visa. Next day he calls Jane to apologize to her and leaves her a message that he had an accident, that's why he arrived late, and the guard didn't want to let him in. And Jane hears him the message and she doesn't reply to to him and she is very upset, and the call ends and he says to himself he wishes if he can tell her that Spider-Man is he. Later you find everyone gathered to attend the O2's experience and he tells it that he will make a small sun and he will control by these arms, and this energy will be renewable and will replace them with many resources. Then he wires the arms to hold the sun and tells it that it specially made the resist the sun against its magnetic energy. Then he returns on the device and everyone salutes Harry for this success and he becomes better than his father. But once everything spoils when energy pulls anything metal in its way, O2 refuses to stop the machine and continue the experiment, but the place starts to collapse and the sun eats at the place and Harry is going to die. But Peter appears in his suit and saves him, but Harry says that he's still going to take revenge on him. Then Peter tries to stop the machine, but the arms stop him because a controlled ship has been destroyed and the machine becomes the one who controls him and prevents anyone from coming close to the machine. So people run away and Peter can't stop O2 alone until the glass of the place is destroyed and it kills Rosie, so O2 gets distracted. So Peter attacks him and electrocutes him and faints. Then he disconnects the power from the sun and disappears and saves the place. Later, the police and ambulance arrive and take the injured and the guard takes Harry away before the priest arrives. And Harry is very upset because he lost a lot of money because of O2, except Spider-Man, who saved him and couldn't kill him. And O2 is in the hospital to separate him from the arms, but it attacks the doctor and kills everyone in the room. And when a doctor tries to cut it off, the arm sees him and kills the doctor and one of them can escape from the room. O2 finally wakes up and he remembers that what happened and his wife who died and the arms that destroyed his life. So he screams loudly and he leaves the hospital after he destroyed it and he beats people, but he discovers that the arms protect him. Then he reaches the river and finds abandoned place there. Next day, the news of O2 is spreading, especially in the James newspaper, who wants pictures of him and he calls him the Octopus Man. And Peter gets the newspaper and James asks where he was and fires again. So Peter gets out, but James calls him and tells him he has an important occasion and he needs someone to take a picture and there is no one but him. Later, O2 stands on front of the river to commit suicide and get rid of the arms, but it talks to him and he hears a voice in his head and he knows that the chip that protects him has been destroyed and the arms order him to complete the experience and rebuilds the machine again. But O2 thinks that this is wrong and must eliminate the arms, but it tells him to rob a bank and repeat the experience and he will be approved, proof to the world that he's a genius scientist. He loses his wife and this enough and he convinced of their words. Next day, May and Peter go to the bank to take a loan, but the employee refuses and tells her that there are not enough guarantees to take the loan with. So she tells him about a few expensive things that she owns, but it's not enough to give her a loan. The employee leaves them and May tells Peter that they will find another solution for sure. Later, Peter feels danger and that there are strange things and suddenly a car is thrown at them. He away May before she flops. Then O2 breaks the safe and steals what is in it. So Peter has to leave May to save the bank. Then Peter attacks O2 and they keep fighting together and throwing money at each other. And he is going to kill him, but Peter manages to get away from him and the police arrive at the bank, but O2 takes May with him so the police don't fire at him and he climbs the building and Peter follows him to save his aunt, but O2 attacks him and May attaches to the statue with the umbrella. Then Peter hits O2 who doesn't give up and throws him away to the other building. And he holds May and tells Peter if he wants her, he will come to him. And Peter prepares himself to attack him, but O2 is going to kill him, but May hits him in the face, so he distracts. And Peter follows her at the last moment and runs away with her. When they arrive, she apologizes to him because she saw him as a bad person. And he tells her finally we could defeat him, but he gets surprised of his words and tells him, "What do you mean?" And she dubbed that she knew him. At night, Peter Peter attends the party to photograph celebrities, and he doesn't catch anything from drinks or food. And he goes to Harry and tells him to stop drinking because this is wrong to his health, but he tells him to stay away from him and go to his friend, who refuses to reveal his personality to him. Then Peter goes to photograph celebrities and James, and he sees Jane coming down with James' son, John, who works as an astronaut. So he gets upset when he finds her comes down with him. When he meets her, he apologizes that he didn't come, but she is upset, and she tells him that he isn't interested in her. And Joe come to her more than once to watch her. Even Harry come to her twice, but he didn't pay attention to her, and the situation gets worse when Harry beats him in front of people because he doesn't want him to know who Spider-Man is. And Peter gets annoyed, but he can't answer him because he is drunk. Also, John announces his engagement to Jane and that they intend to get married soon. So Peter leaves and rears his suit and empties his anger, but he falls suddenly and there are no strings in his hand. And this is not the first time these things happen to him, and he falls when he climbs a wall. Also, his sight started to weaken and he doesn't know what is happening to him. So he comes home feeling tired and annoyed of what is happening to him, and Otto works on manufacturing the machine again. And the armies help him, of course. Later Peter goes to the doctor and he examines him and tells him that he's good and doesn't have any disease. But Peter says he feels bad and he sees in the dream a lot of that he is a Spider-Man, but his skill is decreasing and he loses his ability. And Peter tries to show that he's not Spider-Man, but the doctor understands and he says maybe he wishes to achieve a dream that he lost because of a Spider-Man who has bigger responsibilities than him. And the doctor advises him to give himself a chance to live his dream, not to be like a Spider-Man and forget himself. Peter listens to his advice and understands that he forgot who he is and he becomes only Spider-Man. That's why he must go back to his life and find himself and stop being the savior. Later Peter comes home and imagines his uncle talks to him like the last time they met, and he tells him that he's strong and he must be responsible. But he tells him that he loves Jane and wishes to be with her, and from today he will stop being Spider-Man. Peter starts that change by throwing his suit in the trash. Then Peter goes to college wearing his glasses because his sight is weak and he's walking happy, although what happens around him, and he becomes a normal person again. And this is something that made him happy, and he becomes excellent in his studies again. If he sees a crime happening, he turns his face and walks away because he's not as strong as he used to be. And he finally attends Jane's play, which she is so happy. When he sees him, that she forgets the conversation out of his happiness. After he finished, they leave together, and Jane says to him that he is different, and he tells her that he really changed and became another person. And he tries to invite her to dinner, but she tells him doesn't try because she is getting married. And he says she still didn't agree completely, but she tells that she decided a long time ago when he gives up on her and that he is too late to get back to her. He says to her, let them start over, but she says to him that there was nothing between them from the beginning, and leave him and tell him that he has really changed but very late. At the newspaper, the cleaner arrives and he has Peter's suit and he decides to sell it to James for big sum. So James buys it and thinks that Spider-Man disappeared because of his articles, but Roy is upset because he thinks that the Spider-Man is a good person. He was helping people. Later people walks in the street and listens to rumors about him and songs about him and sees someone begging for help, and there are two who are stealing him, so he's going to help him, but he remembers he's a normal human being and he leaves him. Next day, with Peter and May visit Pen's grave, and she's still sad for him, especially that he died killed, and until now she doesn't know who was the cause, and she tells Peter if he was there he would have been with them by now. Here Peter can't hold himself and confess to her that he is the reason Ben died, because she didn't go to the library that day and went to the wrestling ring to earn money, but the man refused to pay him, and the thief entered and stole the money, and he let him run away, although he could have stopped him. So she gets shocked and leaves him, and he becomes sad because if he tried to stop the thief, all this would not have happened, but revenge blinded him and his uncle Ben was killed because of what he did. Later, Otto finished building the machine at last, and Harry is at his home and he's still looking for Spider-Man, and the guard said that he will leave because it's late. Then Harry stands in the balcony and hears strong remorse and is afraid, and he's surprised that Otto comes to him and asks him for Triton, but Harry refuses to give it to him. So Otto carries him and he is going to throw him, but Harry stops him and says, "Let us agree." And he tells that if he brings Spider-Man, he will give him the Triton. And he says, "Stay behind Peter and you will find him because his private photographer," and warns him not to hurt him because he is his friend. Later, there is a big fire in the building and the firefighters are unable to control it. And there is a child who is still inside and no one knows how to reach here. So Peter takes risks and enters the building while he's a normal human and he can reach the child. Then he goes out with her, but the house collapses and Peter falls, but he throws the girl up before she falls, and he was about to fall, but the child doesn't leave him and held his hand until he gets out. Later, he returns to his home and Lila and the daughter of the owner of the house tries to get close to him, and she gives a message that his aunt left for him. Then he goes to his aunt's house and finds her collecting the furniture because she will move before the bank takes the house, and she tells that there is a child. Her neighbor helps her move the furniture and he asks her if she is still mad at him. So she tells him that she isn't mad at him because he was brave and told her the truth. Then the child with her asks him about Spider-Man and says Peter tells him that he resigned and he doesn't know if he will come back or not. So May says she wishes if he comes back because every person needs a hero in his life, and tells Peter to tell him to come back because people need him and he's a role model for many people. But it appears from May's words that she knows that Peter is Spider-Man. Then Peter tries to fly again but he falls and his back hurts him. Later, Jane prepares the wedding invitation and decides not to invite Peter as her best friend, and she tries to get close to John, but she doesn't feel that he is the man spider, and it seems that she is related to him because she liked him to be Spider-Man. Then she meets Peter and asks him if he was serious about his words for the last time, but he tells her that he spoke spontaneously and he didn't mean what he said because he will not be able to be next to her all the time. So Jane gets annoyed and tells him she doesn't understand him anymore, but she wants to try something with him and she's going to get close to him, but Otto throws a car at the restaurant that breaks the wall. But Peter saves Jane and Otto grabs him and tells him to tell his friend he wants to see him on the bridge tonight. Peter denies that he knows where he is, so he throws him into the wall and kidnaps Jane and see if you want your friend, let him meet me. Then Peter gets up and his strength returns to him and he goes to take his suit from the newspaper and leaves James a message that he's not a criminal, although James wishes he can't come back to save Jane, but he gets annoyed with him because he stole the suit from him. Then Peter flies to Otto that he waits for on one of the roofs, and the flight starts between them and fighting over one of the trains, and Peter falls more than once, but he becomes back again and they keeps hitting each other, but Otto breaks the train brakes and says to Peter to follow them if he can. So Peter removes the mask to see well and tries to stop the train, but it doesn't stop. Then Peter shoots his strength on houses and after 2 attempts he can finally stop the train, but he faints and people catch him and they carried him in the train and see his face and are surprised that he's still a young man. Peter wakes up and is afraid because they saw his face, but they promise him that they will not tell anyone. They give him his mask and he too delivers and he takes him from the people. Then he takes him to Harry while he's tied to the same couch that his father left on when he died, and Harry gives him all the Triton. Then Harry begins with Peter alone, and Harry decides to remove the mask, but he's shocked when he knows that he's Peter. And Harry asks him if he killed his father, so he tells him that there are things he doesn't understand. But the important thing is that he must get out too, because he kidnapped Jane, and he will be destroyed the city because he built the machine. So Harry tells him about the place. Then Otto works on the machine, and Jane is still with him, and he doesn't want to leave her. And he tells that Spider-Man is dead, and no one will save her. But Peter arrives, attacks him, but the machine was working, and the sun starts to grow and pull anything in his way, and one of them is Jane. But Peter saves her at the last minute and tells her to run away quickly. Then Otto catches Peter, and Jane tries to help him, but he hits her and fence, and Peter can run away from him and electrify him. He pulled the wires so that the sun would stand up, but he discovered that it doesn't stop, and Otto tells that it doesn't need external energy because it is energy alone. So Peter asks him for help and reveals his face to him, but the armies order him to kill Peter. But Peter reminds him in his words that intelligence is a talent and we should use it to serve human beings. So Otto returns to his mind and controls the arms and decides to eliminate the machine himself, and he tells Peter to get out, and he's going to take it to the river, and he must die with it so that it doesn't hurt anyone else. Then he takes the sun and heads to the river, and Jane knows Peter is the same as Spider-Man, and he takes her, and they get out of the place before it collapses. And Otto throws the sun and drowns with it, and Peter says to Jane he is afraid for her, so he refused her love, and he has many enemies, and he doesn't want to hurt her, although he loves her. Then he puts her down, and John takes her and leaves, but she is upset because she wronged Peter. And Harry thinks about his father and hears his voice talking to him and asks him to take revenge on Peter. And he finds his father in the mirror, so he breaks it, and he's shocked that he finds behind it his father's factory and the suit he was wearing. Later, Jane today will be her wedding, but she runs away and goes to Peter and knows that she will not be able to live without him because she loves him and accepts him as he is, and you will help him to be a hero and also Peter. And still here, the second part of our movie finished, and wait for the remaining parts of the Spider-Man series. You love action, suspense, and mystery, we have all of it. Also exists in the coming mini. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and that's it. Bye. He turns into a Superman and cooperates with his worst enemies to save his lover from danger. The movie starts with Peter Parker telling his story in the long days that passed, and he said that all the people love him and talk about their superhero and is happy in his life and lives it simply. Even the people in his life who know him as Peter love him and deal with him with love. Later, Peter is gonna to attend a big party for his girlfriend, and he watches her while he's very happy because this is the first play she makes in her life, and her whole future depends on it. At the same time, Harry is at the same party, and he sees Peter while it seems that he is mad at him. After the party, Peter goes out to wait for Mary until she gets out, but she sees Harry going to his car, so he runs to him because he wants to talk to him. But Harry tells him that they are no longer friends, and he leaves him. Then Mary goes out immediately to say hello to Peter, and he shows him the flowers that Harry gave her as a gift and asks him for opinion about her play. So he tells her how smart and talented she is. On the other hand, Harry comes home and he goes to inject his body with the same antidote that his father injected himself with the past. All this to turn into a superhero and return the rights to her father who died at the hands of Spider-Man. By the way, Harry already knows Peter is a Spider-Man. Later, Peter and Harry, while they are sitting on the Spider-Man web of his, and they watch the sky and the stars from the highest place in the country. At the same moment, a meteor falling from the sky, and when Peter and Mary get down to ride the motorcycle, there is a strange creature coming out from a meteor and ride with them his motorcycle. Then we find the police while they monitor an area in the country, and there is someone who is dragged to enter his house And when he enters, he checks on his daughter because she's sick and needs money to have an operation. And this man named Flint goes to that kitchen to eat, but his wife wakes up and sees him. So she yells at him because he comes home after the crime he committed and he killed someone while stealing money from him. So he tells that he did that against his will and that he wanted to take the money, nothing else. Then their daughter wakes up to their words. So Flint checks on her and he tells her that he will do anything to make her recover and do the operation, and very soon he will return to them with a lot of money. But his wife yells at him and asks him to get out of the home. Then Peter goes to his aunt May and tells her that he wants to engage Mary. So she's very happy and starts to tell him about her love story with her husband and show him their wedding ring. But while she's talking, she remembers her memories and starts crying. But immediately she gives him her ring to give it to Mary a gift. Then Peter leaves. But while he walks, Harry appears in the same suit as his father and attacks Peter, and at the same time a very fierce war happens between them. But this time Harry wins because he drops him from a high height. So Peter tries to explain to him that he didn't kill his father and he has no guilt in this, but Harry doesn't hear from him. Hate and revenge are filling his eyes, so he beats him and makes him fall. At this moment the ring falls off from Peter, so he tries to catch it at the last moment and he starts running away from Harry because he doesn't want to kill his only friend. So Harry runs after him and throws bombs at him, but Peter suddenly disappears and falls to the ground and he makes an ambush to make him calm down, but unfortunately Harry faints, and when Peter tries to wake him up he finds his situation difficult. So he transfers him immediately to the hospital, and there they try to treat him as much as they can, but his luck is that he still breathes. At the same time, the police are trying to catch Flint and they inform all the units to catch him because he escaped from prison. At the place where they run is an atom fragmentation factory. Then Flint falls inside a pile of rocks and enters the machine without any seeing in it. Unfortunately, they turn it on while he is inside, and suddenly the particles of his body mix with the particles of sand and rocks and he turns like them. Later Peter tells Mary what happened, so she goes to the hospital to check on Harry, and when they know that he wake up they enter the room for him, but they discover that he lost his memory and he doesn't remember except that his father was killed, not more. So Peter is happy because this way Harry will remain his friend like before. And what helps him more is that Harry thinks that they are friends from the college and that they were the best friends too. Next day Flint is turned into a pile of sand and he became a Superman and gathers his body as much as he can, which is made of sand. Later Peter is at home holding the ring that he will give to Mary, and suddenly he finds her knocking on him, so he hides it from her. And when he opens, he finds that she brings a newspaper with her and she tells him that all the people talk about her. And she tells him that all the people talks about her performance in the last show and that she couldn't convince them of her talent, and she blames him for being thankful in her performance, although all the people don't love him. But Peter tells her that sure, there are people and she must get used to the critics that will meet her in her life and not to be affected by them, otherwise she will lose her normal life. At the same time, they hear that there is a problem in the city and the police need help, so Peter puts on the suit quickly and goes out to follow them. And Mary gets up to leave, but while she's going out, she takes care of the creature that we saw a little while ago riding the motorcycle with them while he is in the room. Then Peter arrives at a place where the problem is, and he finds a big crane that no one can control, and it breaks the building around him to the extent that it removed a whole floor from a building. And there is a girl who falls from it but holds on a rope. So the police gather to watch what is happening, and then Edward appears. He's Peter's fellow journalist at the newspaper and interested in Spider-Man's life. Then the crane comes back again and destroys the floor below the girl. so she falls screaming. Then Peter arrives and saves her, so Edward tries to take pictures for him from close. So Peter gets annoyed because he doesn't want to be smarter than him and leave him and fly immediately at the newspaper where Edward and Peter work, and we know that the manager employs his wife as his secretary. At that time, Edward arrives and meets the manager, and he shows him the pictures she took of Spider-Man. But Peter also arrives there, and they both show him the pictures of Spider-Man to choose from them. So Edward tells that he needs to be employed in the newspaper to get married, and the manager tells him that if he takes pictures of Spider-Man while he would commit a crime, he will prove him in the job. So his assistant tells that Peter is older than him and he deserves to be appointed. But the manager only cares about his interest, and he tells them that whoever brings photo of Spider-Man while he is committing crime, he will appoint him immediately. So Edward leaves happily to get Spider-Man in trouble. Peter knows he will not make a problem because he is Spider-Man, and he challenges Edward to film him in any crime. Then he goes to drive Harry home, and when he enters Harry's house, he remembers that day Harry's father died and he drove him home too. But Harry's caught in his thinking and throwing him basketball, so Peter grabs it easily. And when Peter comes back to throw it to him, Harry grabs it quickly. So Peter knows that Harry has acquired the super ability that his father had, and he worries about him. Later, Mary goes to the theater for the rehearsal, but she gets shocked when she enters because she sees a friend of hers while wearing her dress. So she knows that they dispensed with her after what was published about her, and they know that they will not be able to load the theater for her. So Mary gets mad at their words and comes out annoyed because theater is her whole life. And when she gets out, she finds Spider-Man in the street and all the people greet him, so she goes to meet him. At the same time, Flint walks in the street and the policeman suspects him and reports to the station, and he asks for support while he walks behind him. When Flint takes care of him, he tries to escape, and he gets on the top of a big sand cart in the street. So they come out behind him and see him, but they find him disappeared, and suddenly he comes out of the sand and hits them. So they shot him a lot, but not a bullet affects him, and he can run away from them easily. Then Peter's colleagues, Gwen, who he saved at the day of the accident, talks about Spider-Man with unreal words, and she says that she knows him and that they are in a relationship, and also they went out to drink coffee together before, and Mary listens to her and gets annoyed and believes Gwen's words about the man she loves for years. Then Harry arrives and talks to her, but he doesn't think Spider-Man is Peter's friend, and he doesn't know what Mary is upset about and leaves him. And suddenly, they find a sandstorm coming towards them, and this is Flint, who destroys anything that stands in front of him. So Peter runs after him to catch him, but when he hits him with a punch, he gets away from it, and Flint hits them and drops him from the car. So Peter tries to catch him in any way, but he doesn't know, and Flint runs away. At night, Peter goes to a cafe, and he prepares himself to ask Mary for engaged, but Mary walks bored in the street, because every time she walks in the place, she sees Peter's photo while he is close to Gwen. Then Mary arrives and meets him, but before he talks to her, he finds Gwen coming towards him, and he asks him to bring her picture with Spider-Man. So Mary is annoyed, and what bothers her, he introduces her to Gwen, and he tells her that she is his colleague. So Mary feels that there is a relationship between them, and he lies to her. So Mary starts asking him where he knew her, and when and why you didn't tell me about her before. And she literally opened a report for him, but poor man is not able to reply to her. So she remembers him when he got close to Gwen, and she gets annoyed with him and doesn't wait to hear the surprise from him and leaves. He gets mad and takes the ring and leaves too. Next day, he tries to call her, but she doesn't answer him, although she stands next to the phone and hears him leaving her a voice message. and when she goes to reply, he closes the line. At the same time, he finds a phone ringing, so she thinks that she's the one who's ringing him. But he discovers that the police that they want him and his aunt. And when they arrive, the officer tells him that the one who killed his aunt's husband, not the criminal they told them about, and the one who killed him is Flint. So he gets shocked and shouts with the officer because he didn't tell them before. And he goes to home and stays next to the wireless to wait for any news about Flint until Mary arrives and tells him that May is worried about him because she tried to call him a lot but he doesn't answer. So he tells her that he waits to know who killed his aunt's husband so that he can go to take revenge on him. And he feels a strange feeling. That's why he embarrasses her and tells her that he doesn't need her. So she leaves him while she is upset until sleep overcomes him. So he keeps dreaming of nightmares about the day of the accident. And at the time, the strange creature watching him, and he gets close to him and catches him and merges with him to the extent that they become one. And suddenly, he wakes up and finds himself in a completely different place in the city. So he asks himself what brought him here because he doesn't remember anything. And when he walks on the wall, he sees his new look in the mirror and he likes him. And he feels that he has gained a new power, but he doesn't know its source. Next day, he takes a sample of it and goes to a lab to analyze it. The doctor tells him that it's the first time he sees a parasite like this. Then Peter comes home and he hears the police and they report a sandstorm. So he enters quickly and puts on his suit, but he changes his mind and chooses a new black suit and runs quickly to the bank that's being robbed. Then he sees Flint escapes through the drainage pipes, and here Edward suddenly appears and takes pictures of him. But Peter breaks the camera and he goes down quickly behind Flint. Flint feels that someone walks behind him, but suddenly Peter attacks him and reminds him of the old man who he killed before. So Flint asks him how he knows him, but Peter keeps hitting him and throws him in the water too. So Flint tries to take the money he is told to deliver it to his daughter, but he can't catch it. And Peter opens a big water pipe, so he melts. Later, Peter surprises himself very much, and he is annoyed because it's the first time he kills. Later, he gets back home, but treats the owner badly. So the man is surprised. Then Peter goes to the mirror and sees his new suit, and there were devilish forces inside that affected him and planted hurted in his heart. Then he goes to May to tell her that the one who killed Ben died. So she gets surprised and asks him who killed him. He tells he's Spider-Man, but she gets more surprised and tells him that Spider-Man doesn't kill. Later, Mary looks for a job in a cafe after she was kicked out of the theater. Then she calls Harry and asks them to meet, but Peter is sad after what he did, and he goes to the phone to call Mary. Then the owner comes out of the apartment, so Peter apologizes to him for the treatment he treated him with. Then he calls Mary, but she arrived at Harry's house and they spend a very nice time together. But Mary feels that she did something wrong and apologizes to him and leaves. So Harry gets annoyed because she can't get close to her, and he likes her for a long time, but he can't get close to her because of Peter. But he sees his father's picture, and then the memory starts to come back to him, and he remembers what his father said to him, that if he wants to take revenge on Spider-Man, lose the people around him, to break his heart. And then he thinks that Spider-Man is Peter, his only friend. Later, Mary comes home and she finds a message from Peter. He apologizes to her for what he did to her yesterday. But before she calls him, she's surprised by Harry in front of her, and he holds her. And he tells her that if she wants Peter to live, she must listen to him. Next day, the owner's daughter goes to Peter, and she makes him happy that Mary called him and waits for him on the line. So Peter runs quickly to answer her, and she asks him to meet her on the bridge. So she takes flowers to apologize to her and goes to meet her. When she sees him, asks him to end their relationship. And of course, it's hard for her to say that, and after she leaves him, she meets Harry on the way. so he tells that she chose right. Then Peter goes to tell Harry what happened, and Harry tries to calm down him until she shocks him more and tells him that she invested him at home, and he tells him that he loves her and wants to leave her for him. So Peter is shocked and leaves him, and when he comes home he thinks about his life and shocked in the people around him until he looks at his new suit, so he wears it and goes to Harry's house and asks him what he did to Mary to make her change on him. So Mary reminds him that he killed his father and that's why he wants to take revenge on him. Peter annoys from his words and beats him, but he finds Father Harry weapons that started to appear and attack him, but the power of Spider-Man is big and he can't beat him, so Harry throws a bomb at him, but Peter grabs it and throws it at him, so it explodes in Harry's face. Next day, he walks in the street, so he sees the pictures of Spider-Man in the newspaper while he's committing a crime. So he knows that Edward who did this and spread his pictures by lying. And also, the manager knows that Edward falsified the pictures of Spider-Man and what he wrote about him is not true. So he kicks him out from the newspaper and his wife is completely destroyed. And from this moment, Peter starts to change to the extent that his actions are different and he walks dancing in the street and all the people are watching him. Even his life starts to improve and he works in the newspaper, and any pictures and news he gets about Spider-Man he asks for a lot of money. At night, Flint got out of the water and gathered himself again and he's alive and he thinks of his only daughter who must save. Later, Peter goes out with Gawain, Edward's sweetheart. Fortunately, Edward watches them while they enter a pub. Then Peter and Gawain enter and they are surprised that Mary sings in the same bar. But Peter doesn't care about her because he breaks up with her. And when Mary goes on the stage, she's surprised that Peter is the one who plays the piano and he dances on the stage with Gawain. So she gets angry. So Gawain is embarrassed by what happened because she knows his relationship with Mary and she leaves him. So Peter feels guilty and goes to talk to Mary, but the bar manager brings the guards and asks Peter to get out after the strange behaviors that he does, but Peter catches them all and hates them. And when Mary tries to stop him, he pushes her on the ground and robs her. So she's surprised by his actions and asks, "Who are you?" Her question shocked him and he is surprised of himself and he leaves her while not knowing what happened to him. Then he goes up to the roof of the ranch. At the same time, Edward walks behind him, watching him, and he sees him going up to the ranch. So he enters the ranch and wishes to take revenge on Peter and kill him. Later, Peter tries to get rid of the suit, but he can't, and he keeps ringing everywhere, including the bell that makes a loud sound. So he takes care that the creature is affected by the loud voice. So he hits the bell rings harder. The creature leaves him and falls to the ground. So Peter is happy to get rid of the monster inside him, but when the creature was falling from above, he went down above Edward and controlled him, and he turned it into a new monster in the city. Later, Peter comes home, and he thinks about all what happened in the last period, and May arrives to meet him, and she asks him about his condition, especially that he disappeared after they visited the police station, although she asks him what he did with Mary. So he tells her that his life was destroyed and his relationship with her was ruined. And that's it, lose her forever, and takes off her ring and returns it to her again. But she doesn't accept to take it again and asks him to think with himself to review what happened in his life and fix it, and that he will not be able to change himself for the better unless he forgives himself. At the same time, we see Edward in the new lock looking for Flint, and when he finds him, he offers to cooperate with him to kill Spider-Man, that if he wants to avenge his sick daughter, who we can't treat. and Flint agrees immediately. Later, Peter goes to Mary's house and looks at her from the street, and when he doesn't know what to do, he leaves, but Mary fills him and looks at him from the window, but he disappeared, and she gets down to take a taxi and leaves, but the surprise is that the taxi driver is Edward, and he kidnaps her and hangs her in the highest place in the city. Then police and the news started talking about a new kidnapping case, and they spread information that there is a new monster in the city, and they ask for the help of Spider-Man. Then even announce that there is another that helps the Black Ghost and control everything. Then Peter watches the news and knows she is his sweetheart Mary, so he comes home quickly to wear his suit. At the same time, the press imagines words about Spider-Man, which the monster wrote it, and they find him challenging Spider-Man to go face them. And Harry watches the news and is annoyed by what's happening, but suddenly Peter arrives and asks him to help him get Mary back, but Harry refuses and says that he has nothing to do with that and goes to save his lover. After he leaves, the servant heard them while they were talking. That's why he enters to talk to Harry and reminds him of the day of his father's accident. And he shocks him when he says Peter wasn't the one who killed his father, because on the day of the accident the weapon he was killed with was from the same vehicles as his. And this shows that Spider-Man has no guilt in this matter at all and asks him to go and help him. On the other hand, Peter arrives at Mary's place and he's trying to save her, but he meets two very strong ones, and each one of them beats him a little bit until they knock him to the ground, and Flint keeps hitting him until he loses consciousness. At the same time, Harry arrives in his father's ship and joins Peter to help him and throws a bomb in the face of Flint so it destroys him. So Peter is happy with Harry's arrival and takes care of each one of them with the monster. At the same time, the newspaper manager arrives at the place and sees what is happening, so he wants to photograph, and he finds a camera with a little girl, except with money, and when he tries to take pictures with it, he discovers that it doesn't have memory to keep it, so she offers him to buy the memory with more money. Later, Peter saves Mary at the last minute, and when he comes back again, Flint fights with Harry. They knock him to the ground, but he hears Edward's voice coming from everywhere, so he stands waiting for him to appear in front of him. But he comes to him from above him and holds him, and before he kills him, Harry arrives and saves him. But Edward hits Harry and knocks him to the ground, so Peter takes care of the pipes that fall and their loud voice, and he thinks that he can't get rid of the monster except with a loud voice. And before he does anything, Edward grabs Harry's ship and kills him with it, so Peter starts shouting and empty himself quickly, and at that time he makes a circle with pipes around the monster and frees Edward from it and throws a bomb at the beast from Harry to destroy the monster forever. But Edward runs to save it because he loves power and evil, so he's killed with the beast and disappears. At the same time, Flint is standing watching what is happening, and he goes to walk to Peter and confesses the truth to him. He needed the money to treat his daughter, but when he saw his friend coming out of the bank running, his hand was hit with the weapon against his will. And at the time, his aunt's husband died, and he didn't mean that. And he asks him to forgive him because from that day, he has been living a bad life. So Peter forgives him and says that he too did bad things. At the same time, Flint cries and evaporates in the air. Then Peter is running to Harry to check on him, but he is dying in front of his eye, and they all attend his funeral and they are sad for him. After a while, Peter goes to the bar where Mary sings, and he extends his hand to her and offers her marriage, and agreeing all the time. Until there, the third part of our movie finished. You love action, suspense, and mystery, we have it. Also exists in the comment menu. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And that's it. Bye.